Welcome to the Nordic Venture Show, your speed date with the hottest Nordic innovations and ventures. In this episode, our venture date is with Spinnova.
Okay, so you sent in some really interesting stuff about Spinnova, and we're going to try to break down exactly what they're doing and what this recent news means for them.
Yeah.
So we've got a bunch of articles, and we even dug into Spinnova's own website.
Yeah, we've got some good stuff.
So really, the point here is for us to go through this and figure out what's important. Like for you, the listener, you're interested in sustainable technologies. You're interested in how the textile business is evolving. And this company, Spinnova, seems to be right at the heart of both of those.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a company that is claiming to try to revolutionize how we make textiles, period, at the most basic level. Spinnova has a patented technology that enables them to create a new kind of fiber. And what's really fascinating is they're doing this from wood pulp.
Okay.
But they're also doing it from waste streams.
Yep.
Like, if you think about leather scraps from tanneries, even textiles that have already been used or agricultural waste, they're able to take all of this and turn it into fiber without using all the nasty chemicals and without all the dissolving processes that are traditionally used in this industry.
So they're not doing like the typical, viscose or lyocell,
Right, exactly.
where they're dissolving it and then reconstituting it.
Exactly. Their big innovation is what they call a mechanical refining process, where they take the cellulose that is inherent in all these plant-based materials, and they directly convert it into fiber. There's no dissolving it and then regenerating it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so they've created their own branded fiber. It's called Spinnova. And the cool thing is, it seems like this fiber, it can actually really perform. It's got properties that are very much comparable to natural cellulosic fibers that we're all familiar with, like cotton, for example.
Okay, so it's meant to be like a direct swap in terms of the feel and the function.
Yeah. Potentially.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're not just limiting themselves to clothing. I mean, obviously clothing is the first thing that comes to mind, shirts, dresses, all that. But they're also talking about applications in things like insulation materials for buildings or even composites, which are used in everything from car parts to construction because they're so strong and lightweight.
So this isn't just like a new fabric.
Right.
This could be a new way of making a whole bunch of stuff more sustainable.
Right. And that's why we're here today, not only to understand this technology, but there's been some recent news with one of their main partners that we need to unpack and think about. So we've got a couple things going on here. We need to understand the technology, and we also need to understand what this news about Suzano's kind of change in investment plans might mean for Spinnova and for the broader, the broader market of all this sustainable material stuff.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get into the nuts and bolts of the technology first, because you mentioned this mechanical refining process. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around how that actually works.
Sure. So you can imagine taking wood pulp or other cellulose-rich materials, and Spinnova's technology basically uses mechanical force to kind of beat it down into this super, super fine slurry of fibers. And the important thing here is there's no chemical solvents involved, unlike those processes we were talking about, viscose or lyocell,
Right.
where you have to dissolve the cellulose and then reconstitute it. They're completely bypassing that step. So they're directly manipulating the physical structure of the cellulose.
Okay, that's cool. So they just keep refining it down and down and down.
Exactly. They refine it down and down and down until it's basically this fiber-ready suspension. And then the magic happens. They take that suspension and they push it through a specially designed nozzle under very high pressure.
Okay.
And what that high pressure does is it forces those tiny little fibrils, the individual building blocks of the fiber, to all line up in the direction of the flow. And that's what gives it that natural textile fiber structure.
So it's kind of like combing your hair.
Exactly. Like combing your hair, you're orienting all the strands in the same direction. And once they have that, then it's just a matter of drying it and collecting it, and then that material can be spun into yarn. And Spinnova actually claims that they're the only company in the world that has this process that can directly mechanically convert cellulose into textile fiber without all that dissolving and regenerating.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they're claiming that no one else is doing this mechanical approach. Everyone else is doing the chemical.
Right.
Okay, well, very cool. So the fiber itself, this Spinnova fiber, beyond the way that it's made, what are some of the advantages of it?
Well, one of the cool things is that they've designed it to be really versatile, so you can blend it with other fibers. Obviously cotton is the big one, but you can also blend it with, potentially with synthetic fibers, with other natural fibers like linen or hemp. And importantly, they've designed it to be able to work within existing textile manufacturing processes. So the machinery, the processes that are already in place in these giant textile mills around the world, they can be adapted to work with Spinnova fibers.
That's huge in terms of being able to scale it up and actually get it to market.
Right, exactly. It makes it much more cost effective. It makes it much more practical to actually implement this technology.
You don't have to reinvent the whole system from scratch.
Exactly. And then in terms of the actual properties of the fiber, they're saying that it has a very similar look and feel to other natural cellulosic fibers.
Okay.
So, if you're wearing a shirt or using a product that's made with Spinnova, it's supposed to feel very familiar. It's supposed to feel a lot like cotton. And there's even some talk about it having some inherent anti-odor properties.
Oh, interesting.
And as we mentioned before, they're targeting a wide range of applications, everything from your basic trousers and denim jackets to more specialized uses like thermal insulation and even as reinforcement in composite materials.
Wow.
And then the other thing is that they've created this brand, Spinnova. It's like an ingredient brand, and they're using it to co-brand products so that consumers can be educated about the sustainability of what they're buying.
So you might see a tag that says, contains Spinnova.
Exactly. Yeah, you'll see a tag, you'll see some marketing around it, talking about how it's made and why it's better for the environment.
Okay, cool. So they're really building up that brand identity.
Exactly, yeah. They want Spinnova to be synonymous with premium quality and sustainability in the textile world.
Okay, so speaking of sustainability, that seems to be the core of this company.
Mm-hmm.
What are the big environmental benefits that they emphasize?
So they're really pushing the fact that this is a bio-based fiber, which means it comes from renewable resources.
Mm-hmm.
They're specifically talking about using FSC-certified wood, which ensures that the forests are being managed responsibly. But they're also talking about the potential to use all sorts of waste streams as the raw materials. And then on top of that, they're saying that their production process creates no side streams. So there's no unwanted byproducts that they have to figure out how to deal with. And they're claiming significantly lower CO2 emissions and water consumption compared to, traditional ways of making textile fiber.
Oh, wow.
I mean, if you think about conventional cotton production, it can take thousands of liters of water just to produce 1 kilogram of cotton fiber. So if Spinnova can really achieve what they're saying at scale, that's a huge advantage, especially in parts of the world where water is scarce.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the fashion industry, the textile industry, it's notoriously kind of environmentally damaging.
Absolutely. Huge water use, huge chemical use, lots of waste.
So, yeah, this is a pretty bold claim they're making.
Yeah.
That this is so much cleaner.
Right. And the sustainability story doesn't end there. They're also talking about the end of life of the fiber. They're saying that Spinnova fibers are biodegradable. So when you're done with that T-shirt, you can throw it in the compost and it'll break down naturally. And they've even done successful trials showing that the fibers can be recycled using some of these really cool new processes like circulosi, which is a technology that can take textile waste and turn it back into new raw materials without any loss of quality.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's super cool. And this whole idea of circularity, being able to reuse things over and over again is becoming really important as we try to create a more sustainable fashion industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like they're trying to be, good for the environment every step of the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. From the sourcing of the materials to the production process to the end of life of the product, they're really trying to position themselves as a much cleaner alternative.
Okay, so before we get into the news about Suzano, it seems like Spinnova was on a roll. They were building up all this momentum with partnerships. What can you tell us about some of the companies that they were working with?
Yeah. So leading up to this announcement, Spinnova was really busy making deals, up and down the value chain. I mean, just in January of this year, 2025, ASK Scandinavia, which is a company that makes these really beautiful bags, they announced that their Nova Tote, which uses Spinnova materials, is available for pre-order.
That's cool. So this stuff is actually coming to market now.
Yeah, exactly. And then back in December of 2024, they signed a multi-year letter of intent with PUMA, which is, a huge global sportswear brand.
That's big.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. And while a letter of intent, it's not a guarantee that they're going to buy a certain amount.
Right.
It's a strong signal that PUMA is seriously considering using Spinnova in their future products.
Yeah, they're kicking the tires at least.
Exactly. And then even before that, back in October of 2024, Spinnova got this big R&D loan from Business Finland, which shows that even the government is supporting their development. And then also in October 2024, they had a formal announcement of their partnership with ASK Scandinavia, that bag company we were just talking about.
Right, so they made it official.
Yeah, they made it official. And then if we go back even further to August of 2024, they announced a partnership agreement with Valmet, which is a giant global supplier of technologies and services to the pulp and paper industry.
Okay.
And the agreement was that Valmet would provide Spinnova with the process equipment for their future commercial scale facilities.
So that sounds like they were getting ready to really ramp up production.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like they were really planning for serious growth. And then in July of 2024, they signed a letter of intent with Echo, which is a big shoe company. You might know them.
Yeah, I've got a pair of Echoes, actually.
There you go. So they were talking about creating this joint venture called Respin. So again, they're looking at different segments of the apparel and footwear market.
They're really trying to get this everywhere.
Yeah, it really seems like they're thinking big. And then also, we saw Spinnova fibers being used in Best Sellers collection for the Danish Olympic and Paralympic athletes back in June of 2024.
Oh, wow.
So that was a really high-profile showcase for the material.
Yeah, definitely.
And then their collaboration with Luda Sportswear Company led to a T-shirt made with Spinnova fiber, which was also released back in June of 2024.
Okay.
So there was a lot of product development going on. There was a lot of interest and, kind of validation of the technology.
So they're doing these high-profile things. They're getting these partnerships with these big global brands.
Right.
It seems like they're really on their way up.
Yeah, definitely. They also have this pilot and reference plant in Jyväskylä, Finland called Woodspin Eteläportti, which is a joint venture, and it has 1,000-ton annual capacity. So this facility is really important because it's where they're validating the technology at a larger scale before they go full commercial.
Okay, so this is like the proving ground.
Exactly, yeah. It's where they're working out the kinks and showing that this can actually work in the real world.
Okay, cool. So,
yeah,
like you said, there's a lot of really positive signs for this company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which makes this news from February 28th, 2025 kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
So what exactly happened?
So on February 28th, Spinnova released what they called inside information. And the big news was that Suzano, which is this huge global player in the pulp and paper industry,
right,
they said that they were not going to be investing in the next phase of their collaboration with Spinnova.
Okay, so they backed out.
Yeah, essentially they pulled back, and they also said that the two companies were going to start a strategic review of their existing joint venture, which was called Woodspin, and they were going to renegotiate the exclusivity rights that were part of their original agreement.
Oh, okay. So Suzano was a pretty important partner for Spinnova.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Suzano is a giant in the raw materials sector, so this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so what does this mean? Like, what are the implications of Suzano pulling back like this?
Well, the tricky thing is that they don't really say exactly why Suzano made this decision.
Right.
But the fact that they're doing the strategic review of Woodspin and the fact that they're renegotiating exclusivity, it definitely raises some questions. If you're interested in sustainable technologies and you're interested in the business side of things, you've got to be wondering what this means.
Yeah.
Is Suzano changing their strategic priorities? Is there something about the long-term viability of this joint venture that's making them nervous?
Right.
Is there something going on in the broader market that's affecting their decision-making?
Yeah, because they seemed to be all in on it before.
Yeah, exactly. It seemed like they were all in, and then suddenly they're pumping the brakes.
Right.
So, maybe they're just reevaluating the risk and the potential return on investment.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something about the scalability of the technology that's giving them pause, or maybe it's something completely different.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is this renegotiation of the exclusivity agreement,
right,
because that could really change Spinnova's ability to partner with other companies in the future.
Yeah, because if they're still tied exclusively to Suzano,
right,
even though Suzano's not really investing,
exactly,
that kind of puts them in a tough spot.
It puts them in a really tough spot, and it really introduces a lot of uncertainty into what seemed like a pretty clear path forward.
Yeah, it's almost like a vote of no confidence.
Yeah, it kind of is. And, it makes you wonder if maybe there's a broader hesitation in the market when it comes to these new sustainable technologies. Because these technologies often require a lot of investment up front, and it's not always clear how cost competitive they're going to be in the long run.
Right. You're asking these big companies to take a big gamble on something that's untested.
Exactly. Yeah. And Suzano is a very savvy company. They're not just going to throw money at something unless they really believe in it.
Right.
So the fact that they're pulling back, it definitely makes you think.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's definitely a lot of uncertainty now.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of uncertainty.
But it is interesting that even after this news came out, we still see some positive signs coming from Spinnova.
Yeah, that's really important to note. I mean, even though Suzano made this announcement at the end of February, just a month or two earlier in January, ASK Scandinavia was still putting out press releases about the pre-orders for their bags that are made with Spinnovier.
Right.
And if you go back even further to December of 2024, that's when the letter of intent with PUMA was signed.
Right.
So it seems like even while things were maybe going sideways with Suzano, Spinnova was still working on other partnerships. They were still trying to move their business forward.
Yeah, so they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Exactly. And then there's another interesting piece of information. Back in January of 2025, Spinnova appointed a new director of technology sales.
Okay.
So you could read that as a sign that they're still really committed to growth. They're still committed to commercialization.
Right.
Even though the Suzano thing is up in the air,
Right.
it's like they're saying, hey, we're still going to go for it.
Yeah, they're not giving up.
No, they're not giving up.
So it's kind of a mixed bag right now.
It is. It's a real mixed bag. It's like 1 minute you see all these amazing partnerships and all this progress.
Right.
And then the next minute you see this major partner pull back. And it really highlights the challenges that these companies are facing.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to do something that's never been done before.
Right.
They're trying to change a massive global industry.
Absolutely. And you know, it's not going to be easy. There are going to be setbacks. There are going to be surprises.
Right.
But, you know, that's the nature of innovation.
Okay, so to sum up all this for our listeners, what are the key takeaways from this deep dive into Spinnova?
Well, I think the big picture is that Spinnova has developed a truly unique and potentially game-changing technology. They've figured out a way to make textile fibers from wood pulp and waste without using harsh chemicals, and they've generated a lot of excitement. They've made a lot of deals with some really big brands, and they're actually starting to get products on the market.
Right.
But the recent decision by Suzano to not invest further and the fact that they're reevaluating their joint venture and the exclusivity agreements, that's a big question mark. It's a significant development, and it definitely introduces a lot of uncertainty into Spinnova's short-term plans.
Yeah, and it really makes you think about how hard it is to bring a sustainable innovation to a market like the textile industry.
Absolutely.
You know, it's such a big established industry. It moves very quickly.
Yeah.
There's so many players involved. So, you know, even if you have a great technology, even if you have initial enthusiasm from big companies like Suzano, there are still so many hurdles to overcome.
So many hurdles, and, you know, it's a constant balancing act. You have to be innovative, but you also have to be practical. You have to be able to scale up production. You have to be able to compete on price, and you have to be able to convince consumers that your product is worth buying.
Absolutely. Okay, so given everything we've just talked about, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder.
Okay.
So Spinnova has this innovative technology. They had Suzano on board. At least initially, things were looking really good, but now Suzano is pulling back. So what does this tell us about the challenges of scaling up a sustainable material innovation in a fast-paced industry like textiles?
Yeah.
And what will the outcome of this Woodspin review and this renegotiation of the exclusivity terms? What will that mean for Spinnova's future? What will it mean for the broader adoption of these kinds of sustainable technology?
Yeah, those are the big questions.
Yeah, I mean, is this a sign that things are slowing down? Or is Spinnova just going to find a way to keep moving forward?
Right. Is this a blip on the radar, or is this a sign of something bigger?
Yeah. And what does it mean for all the other companies out there that are trying to do similar things?
Absolutely, because there are a lot of companies out there that are working on sustainable materials.
Right.
And they're all watching what's happening with Spinnova.
Yeah, they're taking notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a story that's still unfolding.
Very much so. Yeah, this is just a snapshot in time.
Right.
And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah. So if you're interested in this space, definitely keep following Spinnova.
Yeah, keep an eye on them because they're going to be making headlines for sure.
All right. Well, thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Nordic Venture Show. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more stories of innovation from the Nordics.